So we've been commissioned here by one of the guys I know, and we have a Yale. This is a GLP 050. All right, and the problem is it's running bad from what the description is. All right, I know there's some fault codes 100.4, but we're gonna look at that later. But let's hear it running. Start it. Okay, I already have the software connected up. My main point of interest here is the fuel trim. Too bad it doesn't have the long-term fuel trim. It only has a short-term and oxygen sensor voltage. So I'm looking at this. I know I have a problem with the engine oil pressure, but that's beside the point. That's not going to make it run bad. All right, so I don't know if you hear it right now, but the longer we go, the worse it gets. But you can see the short-term fuel trim, it's minus 23, and the oxygen sensor is supporting that at a 1.23. I don't know why it's going above 1, because it's voltage. All right, so see, it's really running bad now. All right, so the guy who was looking at this thought it was ignition problem, and it could have easily, but you heard it when it started running. It wasn't as bad, but the prolonged running, all right, it's getting worse and worse and worse. Right now my short-term fuel trim is minus 23. It's basically maxed out almost. So minus 23 is basically the computer is decreasing the amount of fuel. Okay, so now we're under the hood. Still have my software connected up, and I switched to a graphic mode. So the orange trace was going to be my oxygen sensor voltage, and I'll switch back to 2. Okay, but no matter. And the blue trace is going to be my short-term fuel trim. All right, so let's start it up. Okay, oxygen sensor voltage up to 1. My short-term fuel trim is at possibly 0 right now, starting out cold. It's not running as bad right now, but we'll see once it goes into closed loop. See my oxygen sensor, okay, there starts to switch, and you see now, well, likely I'm closed loop now. Oxygen sensor is trying to switch, and you see, if you hear it, it's running even worse now. See, my fuel trim is going down, like we see on the data monitor, right? So what I'm going to try to do is actually even it up. If I'm having more fuel and less air, I'm going to try to create a vacuum leak basically, right? So I'm going to pull this out. Create a vacuum leak. See how it reacted. Okay, that's a lot of air, but as you can see, my oxygen sensor is still at 1, and my fuel trim is not any better. So at this point I have a lot of air going in there, but my fuel trim does not respond. My expectation was the fuel trim should have responded by increasing the amount of fuel, but it did not. Alright, so time to look at that oxygen sensor. Why am I still seeing that it's already a 1? Right that's now, what we're gonna go next. It's my test light, and it's hooked up to the negative, right? And I have a needle probe to the signal wire coming from that oxygen sensor. All right, now it's back up to 1.0, right? And what I'm gonna try to do is try to short out to the negative. Not really short out, but give that oxygen sensor or the computer a negative, so that my signal is going to drop down to 0. What I want to see is how the fuel trim would react to it. Because remember, when I put in a vacuum leak, right? If my oxygen sensor was working fine, then it would have said it was lean with all the oxygen going out the exhaust. And the fuel trim should have gone up, but it didn't. So now I'm gonna try to trick the computer, or trick the computer into thinking that my oxygen sensor is sending out a 0, which is a lean, and look at my short-term fuel trim. Yeah, start it out. That's it. Okay, so you see my oxygen sensor now is almost at 0, and you see the short-term fuel trim now is maxing out to the positive. So basically the computer is adding more fuel because my oxygen sensor is saying that it's lean. Now let me take it out again and see the reaction from the oxygen sensor. It goes up. Staying at 9, you see my short-term fuel trim trying to react. So it's 1 again. And see, now the oxygen sensor starts switching again. Right? And see, my fuel trim is now back to where it should be at. Not that bad. And the engine right now is not running that bad. So it's switching again the way it should be. Okay, there's only one more thing to check on this, and that's going to be the heater circuit. And after that, I'm replacing this oxygen sensor first and foremost. Okay, now we're hooked up to the heater circuit on the oxygen sensor, and this is what I'm seeing. Alright, so to me that's not a problem. It's getting the heater signal from the computer. Alright, so the heater should be working fine. See that glitch right there? Okay. It needs an oxygen sensor. Alright, at least, of course, we need to verify that. But it's not running as bad, right? I know this engine, I think it has a mechanical problem also, but that's not the point of this diagnostic right now. I know these engines are bad for broken valves. Not really broken valves, but they're bad for cracked valves and all that, and I think that's what's happening here partly. That's why it's not running as smooth. But the call that I had for this truck was for really that it's running really bad after it goes off at idle. Alright, so still need to verify. I still need to get a new oxygen sensor, but that's not gonna be up for me to fix. I was just here to do diagnostics, and I'll have the guys replace that oxygen sensor, and I guess he'll let us know if this gets posted that I know it got fixed. Alright, thanks for watching.